Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Soul Focused Radio. This is your host, Martin Friedman, and I'm excited to be joined by my colleagues with Soul Focused Group. I have Mahdi, our CEO. How are you doing?
Doing great, Martin. Good to see you, bro.
Good to see you. I've got Kelly, one of our facilitators and our resident basketball coach. How are you doing, Kelly?
Doing great, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. And a very special guest today. We're joined by KJ Wright of the Las Vegas Raiders, still getting used to saying that after 57 years of saying Oakland. So welcome, KJ. How are you doing?
Doing well, fellas. Thank y'all for having me.
Our pleasure, brother.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we appreciate your time. We really do. So we thought we'd start off today, since you are a very special guest. If you could just maybe tell us a little bit about who you are, just tell us your story, anything you want us and the listeners to know about you.
Yeah, so real name is Kenneth Wright, named after my dad, Kenneth Wright Jr., and originally from Mississippi. Spent all my childhood there, played basketball, football, track, then graduated from Mississippi State University with a criminology degree. My mom was a police officer, and so I love what she did for a living, so I wanted to follow in her footsteps, FBI, homicide detective, and then continued my adulthood. Got drafted by the Seahawks, spent 10 years there, got a Super Bowl, Pro Bowl, and had a great career there. And now I'm working with the Las Vegas Raiders in my 11th season. Truly thankful, truly blessed to be in this position. Got a married wife, Natalie, and 3 beautiful kids, Ariana, Cameron, and Calais. So
wow,
4 families, working on some more. Can't stop. Still going. yeah, still going. So yeah, thankful, truly blessed.
Beautiful. Yeah. Well, as I told you before we came on, I was living in Seattle during the time that you were there, during the whole Legion of Boom. So I personally thank you for your role in that, because it actually brought me good football. Being a Cleveland Browns fan my whole life, it brought me some really good football. So I appreciate you on that level for sure.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah. So we've been having a conversation that we've already started, and the conversation really has been, what has being a man meant to us? Like, what does that mean to be a man? And, we talk a lot about things that we take for granted. Like, most of us would just take for granted, oh, I know what a man is. A man is this or a man is that. But all of us receive messaging early in our lives about what it means to be a man. And so I just wanted to kick it off by just asking you the question, when did you first feel like you learned that lesson? What does it mean to be a man? And maybe this is a second question or part 2 of the same question. But also, when did you first hear somebody say to you, like, act like a man?
Well, it started young. I had the privilege of being raised by my dad and mom. And it started when I was a kid, just seeing my dad and how he operated, raising me and my sister. And I saw my dad, a man, first off, took care of his family. You took care of your family, you provided for your family, you protected your family. And a man was strong, a man was tough. And I had my dad, had my granddad in my life, plenty of uncles that I could look up to. And so, that's what I believe. I believe that a man's supposed to provide for his family, protect his family from harm's way, protect them from the outside evil world that's out there. And so I had a pretty good example growing up. And, fast forward to me as a dad, I instill that in my kids as well.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So let's go to part 2 of that question. When's the first time you ever heard somebody say to you, act like a man?
Ooh, act like a man.
Or anything like that,
Yeah, I think, I don't know if I heard anything like that. I just knew that when it came to the toughness part of a man, I heard that as a young kid, you got to be tough, stop crying about every little thing, suck it up. And even playing football, growing up in that football space, having coaches your whole life, was always taught physical toughness and mental toughness. And when you play ball, that's a real alpha warrior sport. Same in basketball. And so there's little room to I guess be vulnerable and sensitive. I'm always a warrior. And then, and the other side it's not so much.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I know, Mahdi, you had some similar experiences, right? Coming up as a D1 football player. Maybe you could also share a little bit about how you connect to what KJ just said.
Well, yeah, I really connected a lot, except for the part about having mom and dad being there, being in the same place. But the idea of being a man was all about toughness, all about not showing emotions, how violent you can be at certain times.
Yeah.
For me, if it wasn't for football, I know I probably been in jail because that gave me an outlet to express, not necessarily it wasn't like intentional violence, but it was unconscious violence as a result of me suppressing my feelings, because around my uncles, you couldn't show none of that, So let's suppose like I almost got into a fight, and I walked away, and they found out. They're like, nah, bro.
Finish
They
that.
bring you back to the guy and make you fight him with a whole bunch of people in the circle watching y'all fight, right?
Yeah.
So I remember Martin said, did that ever happen again? I was like, it never happened again, because after that, every person who tried to fight me, I'm bucking up on them, because I know my uncle's gonna make me do it anyway. So why not do it now? So it's like, I grew up sort of ignoring a part of myself, because I was a real sensitive child. When I say sensitive, I cared about other people really compassionately. And they saw that as if you keep being that soft, you gonna end up being a punk. That's what they would tell me all the time. So I shut that stuff down, man. I was like, and that made me demonstrate a lot of violence, especially on the football field. I played free safety, so I come down on people,
Get that running start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And back then there wasn't all the rules they have now about, we used to take our shots, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Kelly? When you ever remember hearing that, for the first time, like act like a man or be a man or something like that?
Yeah, most definitely. And before I even address that, but think about the correlation to what both KJ and M said about you were forced to handle all conflicts physically, and then which is acceptable until you get to 18. And then now once you get to 18, now you get thrown in jail for handling conflicts physically. So you get raised a certain way. Someone got a problem with you, well, just square up and let's fight, and then handle it that way. And nobody really is getting thrown in jail because it's organized by adults and it's supervised and pulled, split up until somebody get hurt. But then when you get 18 and you're the adult, now you go, get in a fight and you've been taught this one way. And then now all of a sudden there's extreme punishment and repercussions behind it. And then now we're confused and penalize people and say, well, you're not supposed to do that. Why didn't you just talk to them? Well, talking was never an option for me. And it's an actual skill to learn how to do conflict resolution verbally as opposed to vocally. Right? So you have to learn how to do that. So that's not even acceptable. That's not even, you don't even look at that as an option. And then as we all know, the older you get, the harder it is to break old habits. So the longer you've been solving problems like that, the more difficult it is, and the more harsher your programming is to be programmed one way. So
yeah, good point. That's a real good point, Kevin.
Yeah.
So Kelly, I guess because I'm struggling with this when it comes to raising. We both have boys, so when it comes to raising our boys, do we teach our boys what's the first step when it comes to that part? Is it laying down the foundation of being tough, or are we laying the foundation of self-expression or be vulnerable? What's the foundation that we're supposed to lay with our kids?
That's a great question, and I'm gonna tell you and be very honest and tell you how I did it and how Cindy and I are doing it. And I think Cindy and I have different views and from certain things, but we also make it a point to never disrespect, obviously, or disagree with our parenting point of views in front of the kids. That's a private conversation, right? Me personally, and to address a little bit about what Martin asked me, is that I was raised, I think everybody on this call was raised the same way, to where it was you show toughness and then you learn compassion and vulnerability older. And when you get older, right? So that's naturally, I had KJ first, and I did a lot of growing up when I had KJ, and KJ's 5 years old, right? So I would just instantly like, oh, well, I know my kid is, my biggest fear is I don't really have a fear of my kid being a quote unquote failure. And I don't put, financial barometers like you're successful, you make this amount of money. My biggest fear having a boy was that he was going to be soft, right? Because that was just so unacceptable in my household, right? I was afraid of him being soft, or, not working hard or being lazy, because those are just such despicable things growing up in my household, right? So I've actually shifted my point of view, and I'll tell you a story about what happened with KJ when I picked him up from school. And this is where I knew the programming, the messaging that I was giving my son was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's very natural for especially fathers to, say, oh, don't cry, get up, dust it off, you're fine, right? So, but they don't teach the other side of that coin, to where kids are very literal. So if you tell them don't cry, that means don't cry for any reason under the sun. I don't care if you lose your mom, if you're really sad, whatever it is, right? So I pick AJ up from school, and, he's excited. They're just getting back to in-person school, and he's got a scratch. I'm like, well, what happened? He's like, well, I fell when I was playing. I was really excited with my friends, but don't worry, Daddy, don't worry. I didn't cry. And so I stopped and I thought about that. I'm like, that was your first reaction. Like, you didn't tell me how you got it. You were so concerned that I was going to be like, well, why are you crying? You don't need to cry. Right. So we had to, on the car ride home, we had to have a conversation like, listen, crying is not the worst thing to do in the world, right? If we've got a small, and I had to break it down, if you've got a small little scratch and you want to be tough and it's physical pain and something that you can push through, we're going to try to work through that. If you are emotionally distraught and you're sad about something, and it's something that is a feeling that comes over you, crying can actually make you feel better sometimes when you can release that. On the flip side, if you hold back crying, and Daddy has done this before too, to where it can actually magnify the problems that you're having. So we had to have a conversation, but that was an instant trigger for me to know I've programmed my son that crying is bad under any circumstances. And that was a programming that I received, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think that there's necessarily a cookie cutter way of raising, tough sons that are also compassionate and also can express their emotions properly. But I think you have to find balance in both, right? I think that there's an aspect of both.
That's what it comes down to balance. You know what I mean? Just being balanced, and being tough is okay. Being vulnerable is just as fine. Being emotional is just as fine. And I believe we're starting to see that shift happen. People are starting to become more aware with the mental health, and you see guys in the NFL are taking breaks throughout the NFL season due to their emotions, and so it's definitely a shift that we're seeing.
Sure. I think it's about time we really, because we haven't been evolving. Men, we've been like gladiators. We've been trained to be gladiators in almost every part of our lives, and a lot of us suffer because people don't get a chance to get to know who we are. Because who they meet is the gladiator, always the gladiator.
Performer.
Gladiator in our relationships with women, gladiator with our children, gladiator with other brothers. We gladiators all the time. I think about the opportunity that I've been given to really take down that shield and just really show up as myself and still find my strength in showing up as myself, which is a human being that has feelings, human being that struggles with things, human being that connects to other human beings, can have compassion for other human beings. So it's not the gladiator,
Yeah.
But I could have just imagined, KJ, you're still in the ring,
That's right.
Yeah.
So how does that you feel any kind of pressure for being in the ring and having to bring that kind of aggression on a regular basis?
Yeah, and one of my biggest fear is when I get done, then what? How am I going to be able to get that release? Because I can go out here and just smack people all day, lift weights all day, and that's my job. But you see a lot of people in my field, once football ends, that it's a struggle for us. It's a big struggle for us. And so I talked to a lot of my guys, like how do you cope with the loss of football and transition into what we call the real world. And so it's something that we talked about. Therapy is number one. Number one is find someone as soon as you get on
That's
talk
good
to.
That is good. That is so good to hear that, man, because back in the day there was no such thing. You ain't going to no therapy.
Sure.
You ain't want nobody even know that you were having doubts about yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I got it all laid out. I know who I'm talking to, and as soon as I retire, I'm going to therapy. I'm not playing around with it.
No,
beautiful.
I mean,
beautiful.
That's really beautiful. That definitely shows an evolution, right? That shows an evolution of attitude. Mahdi mentioned something earlier, KJ. I really wanted to hear your thoughts, and I'm really feeling like, even as you talk about raising your son and your transition out of the NFL into the real world, you know, Mahdi said that like there was parts of him that he just couldn't fully allow to be present. His sensitivity, his emotions. Kelly said the same thing. You know, is that something that you have been able to identify for yourself, that there were parts of yourself that you maybe had to sacrifice a little bit as a child, becoming into a man, and then in the world that you're in, that you're also looking to reconnect to when you're out of the NFL or in other parts of your life?
Yeah, no doubt. I felt like growing up, I had to, you got to kind of put on a mask in the field that I was in. You had to put on a mask because you see your other boys and your other teammates, and it's like, oh, I got to act accordingly if I want to be a part of this brotherhood.
Sure.
And even through injuries, you know, guys, you know, you can be in dog pain. That guys actually feel I'm all right, I'm cool. You know, I'm not in pain, I'm not struggling mentally. And so I definitely had to mask a lot of stuff. You know, I just think that's just how it's supposed to be, and it's just part of the game.
I think so. Just for everyone listening, when I say KJ, my son's name is KJ too, so I know we got KJ on here.
And Kelly Jr. As much as you like KJ Wright, you didn't name him after him. Kelly, it's Kelly Jr. just like Kenneth Jr.
Yeah.
As much as you like him, as much as
I love KJ.
Yeah. Your other sons are Richard and Cam, right? That's an inside Seattle joke. It's not true. It's a little inside Seahawks joke.
Yeah, the real Legion of Boom.
Yeah. So you know, one of the things that we talk a lot about, and you know, this cost, and actually I want to ask you about, you know, being a father to your own son, or I don't know, do you have one son or multiple sons?
I have two.
You have two. And I think you said that at the beginning. And then are any of them at that age where they've started to play football, or do they have interest in playing football?
Nope. I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and no football's been introduced yet. You know what's crazy? What I tell all my friends and family, I don't know why I say it, but I'd be like, don't let your kids play football. And I really mean that. People think I'd be playing, but I'm like, do not let your kids play football. And I'd be dead ass serious.
Right.
Tell us why. Tell us why.
First off, from the physical standpoint, like I'd have got knee surgery, shoulder surgeries, concussions, just from the physical standpoint. And you seeing guys with the head trauma when they get done with the game, like it's some serious stuff. And then you just tap into the other side, the mental side, just the mental part of the mental grind that we go through, leaving the game. Like we identify like ourselves as football players. You know what I mean? Versus just people.
Right.
You know, people identify as, KJ Wright, the Seattle Seahawks player, the Raiders linebacker. And we struggle knowing who we are as men. And so that's just a whole nother mental psyche that we have to go through. And so, you know, you see a lot of guys when they transition, the divorce rate is sky high, going broke is sky high. And so I just think that there's other things you could do.
Domestic violence.
Yes. I think, you know, it's a lot of stuff that comes with this game that people don't see. You know, they just see Sundays. They don't see the other side.
Yeah, right.
You know, that's you know, for so many things in life, we only see what they put on the screen.
Sure.
Yeah.
And nobody takes the time to go look at how long it took to make that movie, what's going into the background, the practices, the life, what the life is.
Yeah.
And it's a shame too, because it dehumanizes athletes, and in a way, like boxers athletes, where they feel like they can't be a regular person.
Yeah.
But people won't allow you to be that, you know?
Yeah. And even in my situation now, like I got signed week 1 of the regular season. My 2 kids was already in school. So I'm out here in Vegas by myself because I had to make that sacrifice for my family. But at the same time, I'm struggling just coming home to an empty house every day.
Sure.
You know, I'm out here playing the game that I love, but I'm sitting there struggling just being in an empty house. And so you got that whole mental psyche that you got to go through. You got to go to work, do your thing, come home, you know, ain't got your wife to lay beside you. You ain't got your kids, you know, hugging and kissing on you. So there's a whole nother mental side that, you know, people don't see that, you know, a lot of athletes go through as well.
Wow.
This is your first time ever having to play ball away from your family, huh?
Yeah, first and last.
Yeah, right.
first and last. Yeah, you know, you can't do this again.
And you have beautiful energy. You know, your energy is just, you know, like you're doing well. Like you balance. You're keeping yourself balanced, right? What are you doing to keep yourself balanced that way? Because you just feel You know, like some people could use the language, right? They could talk, but the energy you feel from them is like, they're just talking, you know?
Yeah.
But there's a balance with you.
I give all my credit to my Lord and Savior. This was my first time experiencing free agency. And fellas, when I tell y'all that I was in a dark, like sad place, I was jacked up. I was really jacked up because I've been a part of a team since Pop Warner. I've been part of the SEMA Cowboys, Olive Branch Conquistadors, Mississippi State Bulldogs. And this was the first time I really felt isolated as a human being. And you know, seeing my boys go to practice, seeing them go to training camp, preseason games while I was sitting at the house. But I credit my Bible out. I was doing Bible plans, doing Bible studies every week with the fellas, with my family, and the peace that God gave me, the balance that He gave me in my life was just it saved me. And that's where I really give it all credit to.
It sounds like you took the power out of the game and you put it into something else.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You there, but you know your power is someplace else. You know what I mean?
Yep. And thank God for my family. You know, I had people that loved me, whether I was making tackles or not. And so that was another aspect that I was thankful for as well.
Beautiful. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know, Kelly, did you go through that, Kelly, when you had to transition?
For sure. So I went through like you know, when you go and try to make that push to play at a level that the majority of the world were never just able to either have the opportunity or just never be in. I find it I don't know anyone who doesn't identify themselves with their profession when they're looking to play professional sports, right? You know what I'm saying? And even though I think you learn later to separate yourself for the health and your well-being, but you literally have to obsess and make your life surrounded by whatever sport to even just to have a chance to play at that level. So if you're complete your life, I mean, it got so bad to where when I was dating girls, I had to tell people straight up, I'm like, just, you know, I want to, you know, I like you, I want to be with you, but you just have to know before we even get into this that basketball comes first. Like I started relationships like that, you know what I'm saying? Wow. So, and that was in high school, right? So it was just to go from that. And then all of a sudden you go, and the tough part is too, and I don't know, KJ, I'm sure that, you know, with free agency, you get all these like, oh, all these promises, and then all of a sudden they just go ghost, right? So, you know, for me, when I graduated from college, I had a deal already in Australia to go play in Adelaide, Australia. So the guy, he was an all-league player, a year older than me. He was over there, got engaged while he was over in Australia and didn't re-sign his contract. So it wasn't even like a question about where I was going, right? Mm-hmm. He was going back home to Arizona, start a life with his wife, and I was graduating in May, and I was leaving in August. I mean, I had timelines, start dates, training camp, like everything, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually, you know, it just falls through. So now you're just sitting here just waiting, right? And then, you know, when you're working out and when sports is your life, you're working out 2-3 times a day. You know what I'm saying? So you don't have time to go get a job, or you're not even really thinking, this is my job. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah,
I go get a job.
You're not thinking about none of that.
You're not thinking about none of that.
None of that.
But then you're just literally sitting here and you get these, and it's like these mind games, right? Like you get a call and Turkey will call you like, hey, can you leave next week? I'm like, yeah, cool. Yeah. Come out for a try or whatever. And then you never hear from again. You're like, what the hell happened here? And then you got your friends questioning you that's like, well, I thought you were supposed to be gone and they don't want you. And then the people outside the industry that don't understand how it works, asking what we would consider stupid questions because you're getting the same question over again. And then that starts to irritate you. And it goes down that path to where then you start, because your life is so wrapped up and your identity with that you start questioning yourself. And that's where like the darker thoughts start to come in, to where it's like, damn, what am I without basketball? Or what am I if this don't work out? Or am I really not as good as I thought I did? It was all this for nothing. And is it worth it? Should I quit? Do I need to go on to the next stage in my life? There's all these thoughts go crazy, right?
And what's my value? What's my value as a man?
For sure.
Am I still valuable? Yeah.
And this was before I had the responsibility of a family, right? Like KJ has a responsibility of a wife and kids, right? So I didn't even have that pressure on me at that point, to where I'm like, if I don't do this, then how am I going to be able to provide for my kids and my wife, and how's that going to affect my relationship with my wife, and, you know, all that type of stuff. So I can definitely imagine how that goes.
Did you have any brothers or friends that helped you like mentally through the transition?
I didn't, so I have a brother, but I'm 8 years older than my brother, right? So I grew up my whole life more of as a father figure than like an actual brother relationship, a peer relationship, due to several different dynamics in the household. But I couldn't really turn to him because he was always looking to me for strength, right? So and it goes back to that connotation that, what do you mean that Kelly's not doing good? Kelly's the picture of, perfection and all this stuff. I know there was this image that I had to uphold for him because he was going through his own stuff. So I didn't have the opportunity to be vulnerable. And then I was also at a stage in my life to where I didn't think it was okay to show anything but strength. So when I was going through stuff, I wasn't even man enough at the time to even ask for help. You know what I'm saying? I would like, if people were to ask me for something, I wasn't comfortable enough to go to people and say, I'm struggling with this. So every time people would ask me, I'd be like, no, I'm good. I'm good. Yep, it's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. And, it's going to have working on this. I'm just stay working out. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't even look to that option, you know what I'm saying? Let alone if it was there.
Yeah. For me, I had two younger brothers, right? I had to make sure that they were going to be taken care of. So me playing ball was like our way out, right?
Yeah.
And so there was so much pressure. They couldn't make. I didn't want to make any mistakes in front of them. So like when I would like go out or go to have a good time, I would go out of town.
Yeah, right.
Because I didn't want to give them any kind of excuse to mess up. You know what I mean? Because of the condition that we came out of. So it's so much pressure, and you don't learn to see your identity differently from you as an athlete. Like I didn't even know that was a choice. Not until I got, a whole lot much older that I began to see that it was a choice, and I started developing an identity outside of athletics. But everybody coming at you because you're an athlete.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just real quick, I just want to jump in because I heard three words that I really want to follow up on. I heard value, and I heard pressure, and and I heard worth, like value, worth, and pressure as a man. And I want to know if you could just speak on that for a second, and then we'll transition to your next question. But because as you were talking, I was thinking the word value, and then you spoke it. As Kelly was talking, I was thinking about value, and then you spoke the word. What is our value as men if it's not defined by what we do, what our job is? What is our value and our worth as men if we're not, a high draft pick or get that professional job or whatever? I'm not an athlete, so for me, being top in my profession, what is our value and our worth if we don't define it externally, but we define it internally from a more emotional place? What's the worth of a man? The value of a man?
I believe first step is to lead your kids and your family to Christ. I believe that's first step. And then just to be an example, teach your kids and family love, just how to love people, how to love yourself, and just be a good person. In the world full of all this mess, just be a good person. I believe that's where it starts.
I definitely agree with you on that. The idea of really getting in tune with who you are and really beginning to appreciate, coming into an appreciation of how God made you different from everybody else.
Yeah.
And how important your presence is in this world. I know I existed most of my life without having a clue in terms of appreciating my own presence and why I was made and created the way I was created to do what I do or to share what I share. It took me a long time to catch up with myself. And I work with thousands of people in my life coaching practice who that's the issue. They have not caught up with themselves. It's like, they're chasing behind everything else in the world when they really want is to catch up with themselves, but they just don't know it.
Yeah.
I think from my standpoint, I have a little bit different perspectives because I can kind of echo what KJ and M said, but I've always been, even when I was younger, I've always been put in a leadership position, whether it was my peer group, like would look up to me for leadership, whether it was as I got older, I started coaching, whether it was, from a professional standpoint where I had people that were working under me. So there was always the pressure to perform. And that led me to being performative expression, which is a lot of what I learned about through Soul Focus Group. And I never was able to really feel, and we had long conversations with him about, identifying who you really are in every situation, right? Because there's certain situations where if I felt like I was in public or there was only a certain way I could conduct myself, right? Like I couldn't be too goofy. Like with my friends, like I like to crack jokes. I like to be funny. I like to, talk mess a little, you know what I'm saying? But like around certain crowds, I'm like, okay, I need to be professional, right? But flipping the coin a little bit from a value standpoint, and what two things were crucial to me is I've had a relationship with Dustin, which I'm not sure if you, KJ, if you've met Dustin yet in the Soul Focus group, but I've had a long-standing relationship with him for over a decade almost. And he's made, as everyone on this call knows, he's made a lot of, huge strides as a man in his personal development and has helped me tremendously, right? So he's the first person who basically made me understand and showed me the light that it was okay to be vulnerable, and it was okay for people to see you as anything but perfect and to open up. I mean, before we had that conversation, like I think I went like maybe 5-10 years or something like that without shedding a single tear or whatever, you know what I mean? And we talk about that and holding a lot of that stuff up. So he was huge, and just the Soul Focus team and everybody on this call was huge for me really stepping into my own person and identity and being okay with it, and being okay with people not liking me, right? You have to, I think everyone has a natural affinity to want to be liked, but then you start living for other people. You know what I'm saying? You're living your life and you're doing certain things based off so other people like you. And then the other biggest thing that made me understand my value was my kids. Is that no matter how much I messed up in hoop, no matter how much I messed up in professional world, I made a huge mistake. I sent a wrong email out. I messed up on the schedule, didn't do this, told somebody to go to the wrong place. At the end of the day, your kids don't give, excuse my language, don't give a damn about none of that, right? Like they want your attention and your love. So at the end of the day, it puts things into perspective in terms of how microscopic all these other real world mistakes are and what the real importance of value is. You know what I mean? Yeah. Right. Where your true value is.
That's so powerful. You sharing that, Kelly. I mean, to hear you say that is moving, bro. Because I know there's so many other men. Because I was one of them who need to get to that place where they can really claim who they are.
Yeah.
And begin to feel what life feels like when you really are showing up as yourself.
For sure.
And people don't even know that you're not. That's the thing. Everybody's having a party on your dime.
Right.
But they don't know it because you're afraid to tell them this ain't who I really am. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sure.
And Kelly, I was going to say that on the first one of this series, Dustin told a story about he used to say I love you to you all the time, to everybody. KJ Dustin he spreads love everywhere. He tells everybody I love you. And he said at one point you were like, he asked you about it. He said that you said, man, that is it's weird to me. Like you said, it was weird. Like it feels soft, right? I remember, he talked about that. So like, what was that like from your perspective to have this man saying, I love you, not obviously in a way that has nothing to do with sexuality and all, right? So
listen,
what was
man,
that like for you?
Listen, I'm gonna tell you exactly what it was like. So D, and this is, and I genuinely at that time I loved D, right? I just couldn't and I still do, of course, but like he would be like, "Man, I love you, bro." I'd be like, "All right," you know what I'm saying? Like, and then he'd be like, and then we hang up the phone, whatever. He'd be like, "All right, man, have a good day, bro. I love you, man. Have a good day." I'd be like, "All right," and it just kind of went like, and then eventually he was like, "Bro, do you hear what I'm saying to you?" And he's like, and I'm like, "Yeah, I hear you." He's like, "Do you not love me?" I'm like, "Yeah, I love you." And he'd be like, "Well, why don't you say?" I'm like, "Man, that's some soft stuff, man. We don't do that where I'm from." You know what I'm saying? And he's just like, and we had a deep conversation about it. You know what I mean? And I was just, even, and I wasn't just with D, that was with everybody. Like with my boys, like none of us ever was like, "All right, bro, love you, man." You know what I'm saying? And we would just be, "All right, bro, I'm out of here," whatever, right? Never, ever were we like, "I love you." Even like when I would leave when I got older with my dad's house, right? He'd be like, "All right, boy, I'm gonna see." It was never like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At very specific times, maybe if it was like, a big event or, when I had my kid or something like that, he's like, "I love you, I'm proud of you," and stuff like that. But then it was like, okay, yeah, we got that soft stuff out. That's
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But then the crazy part is I remember that conversation because after that conversation, I then started saying that to my close friends, and my close friends were like accepting of it. You know what I'm saying? Like I was like, hey, bro, just so you know, like I would call some of my boys I knew was going through. I'm like, hey, man, just want to let you know I love you. Like, I'm, praying for you, blah, blah. And they'd be like, bro, you don't know how much I needed that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, not everybody, but most people truly want that, but they have to have an environment and a relationship with people where that's acceptable. You know what I'm saying? To where you got to break that ice.
So Kelly, was that just with man to man, or was that with man to woman as well?
No, it was just man to man. Like
Just man to man.
because with my mom and I are like this, right? So mom, like I'll call you, I love blah blah. I said I love you every time I got off the phone with my mom, but it just wasn't acceptable with my dad or even my brother at that standpoint, right? Like my brother and I never said, we'd be like, I love you, brother. You know what I'm saying? Like something like that, right? But it was never like look you in the eyes like, bro, I love you. You know what I'm saying? On purpose. You know what I mean? Like did you hear the love part? LOVE, not LUH. You know what I'm saying? Like I love you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I think in our society socializes us so that we won't become accustomed or comfortable with love. Because in our becoming comfortable with love transforms us away from being gladiators to being full-scale human beings.
Yeah.
So when we can see ourselves in each other. And when human beings can see themselves in each other, it makes us different with each other, you know?
Sure.
It makes us have compassion and we feel connected. You know, I can see my kids in your kids and you can see your kids in my kids. It makes us a community, you know?
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
What do you think about that, KJ? Like, because you said, you said the value, the ultimate value and worth of a man outside of his, his job or his possessions or whatever else is love. So, like, how does that sit with you in terms of one man saying "I love you" to another man like that?
No, I was the same as Kelly. It took my younger brother to do that to me, and he would always say "I love you," and I'm like, oh, okay. But it took him to help me grow, just to grow up. Just grow up. Just be a man. And man, we can say that to each other. Sure. And so it took some time, but I say it all the time now. I have no problem saying it too. I text my homeboy. Yesterday was his birthday. I was like, "Happy birthday, man! I love you." And he said it right back to me. And so I believe now you're seeing more man to man, love and affirmation and verbal affirmation. We letting each other know that stuff.
But it takes strong men to step up and publicly be like, yo, this is okay. I'm gonna do this whether you like this or not. Like this is me. Right. I don't care anybody. I'm gonna put it on, stand up on the stage, whatever. This is what I'm on. You know what I'm saying? And then now other people who may not be as confident in themselves, they say, well, damn, KJ's doing it, M's doing it, Kale's doing it. You know what I'm saying? I really feel that way. Because think about it, when your younger brother was telling you you love him or he loves you, was it a secret that you loved him back? No, it just wasn't acceptable. You know what I'm saying? In our eyes at that time. So
I think for me, I was set up because my dad never told me he loved me.
Yeah.
Right. I had to sort of like, piece stuff together and make sense in my head where I would conclude that, he had to have loved me because this happened. That happened. But as far as for verbally, never. Right. So that made me like have a desire to want to be loved and to demonstrate love. But at the same time, being a gladiator, I was like, I couldn't until I got to a point that I just bust loose.
Right.
And because I had younger brothers and then I had daughters. Oh, that just flipped my world. I had 3 daughters. For sure. And that changed everything because I needed to be able to communicate to them my feelings. They needed to be connected. So that was my saving grace. Really, when the first one was born, I was like, oh shit. Yeah, damn. Right. And the next one was born, like, oh, it's all coming back to me now, right?
So, so fellas, I gotta ask. So, change subject real quick. So, when it comes to your significant others, how do you show your significant other that you love them? Is it a lot of verbal "I love yous"? Is it mine is active service, which my wife hates, and I'm trying to do a better job of being physical touch and words of affirmation. Yeah. But I show her that I love her through my actions. How are you guys?
I think women that goes down to like love language, right? So different people want to be shown their love their own way, right? And most of the time, what I'm not, and I'm sure there's research behind it, but most of the time, 2 spouses don't have the same love language, right? So first of all, identifying what the hell love language was, which I had no idea what that was. stepping out of your own comfort zone and realizing
Yeah.
the world doesn't revolve around you, right? Like I went
Yeah.
into, when I got with Cindy and I butt heads the first like 2 years of our relationship because I was used to having things my way or the highway. And Cindy came in here like, look, bro, I don't know what you've been used to, but this ain't it. So, you know what I'm saying? That's why we were, because, you know, even though I fought at the time, I didn't realize that until you get it, right? So for me, like my love language is, you know, service or gifts, right? Like I like stuff, but this is cool, whatever. Cindy don't, a lot of women that I realize don't like that. Like they don't want, and they don't even want you to tell them really. Like you can tell them a little bit, but they want to show, don't tell me, show me that you love me.
Right.
So and then sometimes they'll say it and she'll be like, you know, she'll look at me like, do you love me? I'm like, what? Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
What do you mean? I love you yesterday. What? So I just wanted to hear it. You know what I'm saying? Just stuff like that. That just in my mind, I'm fighting it because I'm like, this is stupid. What do you mean? Do I love you? Of course I love you. But in her mind, it's a genuine thing that she wants. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
For me, it has been learning to listen, and women understanding just how powerful it is for a man to really listen.
Yeah.
Because we have a tendency to do, they start talking and we turn off and we just shake our head.
Yeah,
honey. Yeah. Honey. But when we really start listening and then we demonstrate that we listened, you know, for what I've learned is that for a large part, when you say you love them, I love you, that's cool. But show me you listening, and then show me that you're demonstrating that you had listened and you're putting things in action based upon that listening.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah. You know, and for me, you know, what I would say is like my first relationship, which was 20 years long, I didn't do it very much at all. My current relationship, and Mahdi, you know, M knows my wife really well. He was at our wedding stuff. So that's a whole other thing, man. It's a very active relationship with a lot, kind of similar to Cindy in a lot of ways. What you're saying is, you know, there's no hiding in this relationship with my current wife. Like she wants to know what's up all the time. And we knew that going into it. And, you know, the main thing for us was, my family we never say, I love you to each other. That just never happened. There was a lot of emotional disconnect. And so, you know, the funny thing is as I'm thinking about it, was really probably Dustin was the first man, probably one of the first people I ever really said, I love you to in the same way. I went through a very similar thing. So, you know, for me, what I always come back to with my wife, Felicia, is that we always come back to this idea that we have a commitment to grow with each other. So we both have to grow. Like you can't just have one person make demands on the other person to grow. You have to grow together. And you can't do that if you don't communicate. And like Mahdi said, you can't do that if you don't listen, you know? Yeah. And that means sometimes like stepping out of the way we were taught as men, because like Mahdi said, we were not taught to be emotionally connected as men. And then the women in our life are like, how come you're not emotionally connected? Well, I've gone through however many years, 30, 40, 50 years on this call of being told to not be emotionally connected. And now you're mad at me that I'm not, you know?
So Martin, you said something a while ago. You said your wife wants to know everything.
Yes.
So here's my theory, my thing as a man. If I'm going through something as a man, if I'm dealing with my own struggles, in my brain, it's like I don't want two people in the house stressed out. That's how I think. And so
we think,
I don't want my wife stressed out over my issues. So I'll take my issues to my homeboys or to my parents. What's your thoughts on sharing what you're going through as a man with your wife? You know,
that's an awesome question.
I think it is like imperative that you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because those are the moments when you develop like real serious, authentic connection that's beyond, you know, the surface level stuff. Because it's during times like that where you are really opening yourself up, where she get a chance to see you not as Superman, but as somebody who needs love and care and compassion in the moment, you know.
Oh, what I would say too, because you're in your question, it really struck me, because you said you don't want to stress her out. Let me tell you something from my experience. When I don't tell my wife what I'm dealing with, it stresses her out times 10.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing I think we miss as men, is that us being silent, them not knowing what we're going through, is double or triple, I would say 10 times the stress of if we actually were sharing what was going on, because they feel it. The one thing, you know, and my D and Kelly and KJ back me up on this, but the one thing I've learned about women is that they feel energy, more than our words. So they're picking up on stuff that we're feeling, and because they're so emotionally in tune they're picking up on stuff we're feeling. So if we don't say it, then they start to question themselves. I think that's more stressful. That's what I would offer you.
They start making up their own. When you don't
Right.
tell them, they first of all, they know already whether you tell them or not. They may not know all the details, but they gonna, like Cindy will press
They're very
me.
intuitive.
And if I don't tell her, she's like, I'm not stupid. I know something's wrong. So I'm not going to drop into you till I don't even really have the opportunity to do that. So,
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, you're going to tell me what it is. And then they go to, why aren't you telling me? And then they start making up their own reasons for why you're not, do you not trust me? Am I not, is there something that's wrong with me? And then the longer you go, the bigger that problem gets. So it started here, and now they're bringing their own issues into it. Well, does he not trust me? Is it about me?
That's right.
And it really, you're not talking to have nothing to do with you. And then most importantly, women are smarter than men in a lot of areas. So what you're struggling with, they may have an answer, at least somewhere that can help guide you to that better path either way.
mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So, and then also on the flip side, you wouldn't want them, like if they were going through some stuff and you found out a week later, you'd be like, why you ain't tell me?
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
And so, fellas, and when you do express yourselves, are you doing that to receive advice on how to fix the problem, or just to get it out your system?
I think both.
I think both.
Yeah.
Both.
And sometimes you can say, I don't want advice right now. I just let me share. Don't give me
get
advice,
it out.
right?
Sure.
Yeah. And I think it's okay. So I think one of the, I think a lot of what we've talked about today has been the cost of the way that we're kind of programmed and socialized as men. This cost of like having to leave a part of yourself behind. And there's this whole cost of us not having learned that it's okay to share. And it's also okay to say what you need in that moment from like a loving place. Like, I just need you to hear me right now and not give me advice, or let me get your perspective. Because like what you're saying women are smarter than us. Absolutely, in certain ways. And definitely what they have is they have a different perspective.
Yes.
And, we talk a lot about perspective at the Soul Focus group. There isn't just one perspective, and being able to get that other perspective is valuable. So I would say, just say, this is what I want from you in this moment, from a loving place,
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what our relationships need, because, there's a thing that they say men want respect more than anything. Mm-hmm. And I believe that's sort of like a myth. What we really want is trust. Mm. We want to trust ourselves. We want to be able to trust whoever we're with.
Yeah.
And that is so essential, because it really allows us to grow. If there's no trust, we're not growing.
Yeah.
We're secretly creating stories in our head about the other person. They're creating stories in their head about us. And we're not gelling. The trust is so important, man. All of us need it. It's like essential to our soul.
Yeah,
for sure.
KJ, I know you got. It's almost that time. You got to go to your meeting, huh?
Yeah.
What time is it?
53.
It's about 5 of almost. Yeah.
You got 2 more minutes. What y'all talk about the next 2 minutes?
Well, I guess, maybe just close it out, because we're going to continue. This is a series, and we're going to talk about what does it mean to be a man for a while. And first of all, you obviously have an open invitation. If you ever want to come back, have this conversation. We didn't even get a chance to even talk about like how race and other things, intersect with being a man, right? Because as a white man, I've gotten different messages than the three of you. And so maybe even there's an opportunity to come back and have that conversation in the future if you want. Always an open invitation, from us for you to come on with us. And then I would just, maybe the last minute or two, just, what would you say? Like, what do you say to your sons, and what would you say to men about what does it mean to be a man and all the experiences that you have, and being able to be fully 100% yourself?
Man, just first things first is just to love your family, love yourself, and a man's provide and protect, obviously finance, but provide a safe environment for your family, provide, prayer, provide all that good stuff for your family, protect them from any harm that can intrude you or your family. And so, I'm excited to, go on this journey with my 2 boys and my daughter, just showing my daughter what a man's supposed to look like. She sees how I talk to her mom. She sees when I open the door. She sees that I don't use any profanity in the household. This is the standard for a man. And if you don't meet this, then, his ass ain't good enough.
Yeah,
and so, our children are always watching us. They watching us. And we just got to continue to be that example.
For sure.
That's beautiful.
Man, it was wonderful meeting you, bro.
Mm-hmm.
I really heartfelt meeting you, bro. Really wonderful.
Yeah. Likewise. Thank y'all for having me.
I feel the same. And I think, to echo what Mahdi said earlier, Your energy is a very powerful, light energy. And I love that I just want to say this last thing. I love that you redefine provide. And that provide isn't just, bringing home the bacon. It isn't just, putting food on the table, but you said provide love. You said provide example. That's a beautiful, beautiful thought to leave us with. So we really appreciate you. And, good luck on everything. And like I said, you have an open invitation anytime you want to come back and keep this conversation going.
Got you, fellas. Appreciate it.
All right. Appreciate
Yeah.
you.
Thank y'all.
All right.
You're welcome.
Sure.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
All right.
Be safe and be well.
Thank you. All right, fellas.
All right. Take care. And we want to thank you all as our listener and our viewer. We want to thank you all for coming on this journey with us. We hope that you enjoyed this conversation. Mahdi, Kelly, anything that you all want to say, anything you want to reflect on what we just talked about or heard before we close out?
Yeah, I know KJ. His family lives here in Seattle, where I'm at, and both of our 5-year-olds actually play on the same basketball team, and so we get to kind of bond. And KJ and I have played basketball before a couple of times, and he just continues to be, a really solid dude that is comfortable in his skin, stands on his values and whatnot, and is unapologetically himself. And I think we need more men in general, men in color in particular, and just really men from all backgrounds to be that figure and stand in the community in terms of how to treat our women, how to raise our children, and how to be a productive member of society. So, I'm really interested to have him back on, and there's some pointed questions that I want to ask him as we get into the race part in terms of Black men in society and public figures and sports athletes and all stuff like that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation. It was really a heartfelt conversation. Like where it was coming from, what energy was coming from was from the heart, right? The other thing I want to say is that, there is he talked about his religious viewpoint, right? But he talked about it from a spiritual place, right? And I think it's so important that we get that there's a sort of a continuity in truth and in the right spirit, that we don't make people wrong because they don't believe what we believe or they have a different religious standpoint. Because it's a perspective. At the end of the day, it's a perspective, and those perspectives should connect around some of the most important issues in life, like loving ourselves and loving each other, being strong men. That's not based upon just physical, but strong mentally, strong spiritually and physically, healthy. And it's just a wonderful thing to have this conversation. I'm looking forward to this whole process where we keep talking about a new man, because this is our contribution to creating a new man in society by sharing our views, no right or wrong, sharing our perspective.
For sure.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it's an offering of new ways of thinking and knowing about this, like everything else. So I want to thank both of you. It was a beautiful conversation. I felt the energy and the light and the love from everybody. And I love, about to double up here on, I love that love was a huge part of what we talked about today. And that's a very powerful message coming from an NFL football player too, I think, who talks about how he's made his living, in a way that's, that's a collision-based sport. And that love is what he comes back to as the foundation of being a man. So we just want to thank everybody that's listening and watching. We want to thank you all so much for being on this journey with us at the Soul Focus Group. We want you to look at soulfocusgroup.com whenever you can. Come visit us, look at all of our offerings. We want you to be on this journey with us of redefining everything and getting to a place where a lot of us have never imagined we could be, right? That's really what this journey is about. So we ask that you stay safe. You stay safe, you stay well. Know that we love each and every one of you very much.
Definitely.
Very much. Stay safe, stay well, and most of all, stay soul focused.
That's right.